Hi, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter, your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer for Sports Illustrated and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. It's great to have you here. Great Saturday to you. I don't know where you live, or what time you're watching this. It is very, very early in the morning right now. And when we put it up, but some people watch it at night, some watch it in the day. Whenever you watch it, I just want you to know I appreciate that you are watching it. Remember, you can follow me on IG when you go to @HondoSR, on X, formerly known as Twitter, when you go to @Hondo Carpenter. And don't forget SI.com/NFL/Raiders. Nobody gives you the amount of written content on your beloved Las Vegas Raiders as we do. Nobody does. And ours is 100% completely free. Make sure you're checking it out, reading it, enjoying it, sharing, subscribing. It's 100% free, and we're able to do that because we're growing so fast, and you folks are so incredibly gracious in the way that you like it, share it, and consume it. So thank you. We're going to be reading a bunch of different emails today from literally around the world. The first comes to us from Vivian D, and she is in Oxnard, California. And Vivian says to me, Hondo, hear a lot of talk about Aiden O'Connell and a lot of talk about Gardner Minshew. I must confess, I did not know that Anthony Brown was even part of the team when you first spoke about him last year, and have talked about him repeatedly throughout the offseason. I know there are no pads, but can you just give me your observations on what you think about Anthony Brown, Vivian D. and Oxnard? Um, yes, I can, Vivian. I like Anthony. He's very athletic. I think he shows a lot of flashes. He's got some experience playing some games in the NFL. Um, a couple weeks ago, somebody asked me, you know, um, what is the battle for third place? And I said, there isn't a battle. It's Anthony Brown's spot. And then another person said, what's his ceiling? We don't know. He's young. He's talented. If you didn't see the video that I did with Antonio Pierce at the NFL owners meetings, I really encourage you to go watch that, where I ask him about Anthony Brown. He likes Anthony Brown. So I certainly do believe Anthony Brown has a shot and will compete as well. I'm not predicting he's going to be QB1, but I'm just telling you, I think he's going to have a shot to earn it, just like everybody else. And I think he's intriguing because he has experience in this league. Next. Hi, Hondo. Here is your Italian friend, Alessandro Pavilli. I fell in love with your work ethic and writing style, and I read your articles that broke down the relationship between Derek and JMD. I admire your integrity and your unbiased approach. I have a question for you. For obvious reasons, you know much more information than you can report to us. How can you decide what to report and when to report it to your followers? And how difficult is it to keep some secrets, even when what you know could give you some advantage? Greetings from Italy. Uh, Alessandro, I thought this was a great question. When I get information, and I have tons of stuff I can't say, and when I get information, sometimes it's called background. Now, what that literally means is I'll get it, and it's for simply so I understand the background of a story. It is, I'm trying to read your exact words here. You said, for obvious reasons, you know much more information than you can report. How do you decide what to report and when to report it to your followers? And how difficult is it to keep some secrets? It's almost never difficult, but I'll give you some examples of when it is. I remember one time covering a player um, who was going through some brutal personal stuff. His parents' marriage had been blown up by adultery. Both parents trying to pit him in the middle. If you invite her to the game, I'm not coming. If you invite him to the game, I'm not coming. Both parents trying to really get to the player's resources, and he was going through hell. In the midst of that, he found out that one of his children was deathly sick. So while all that's going on, the player's performance was not great. And fans, you're a bum, you suck, you're terrible. Some of the social media stuff was just horrible. And I went to him and said, I'd like to defend you. And he asked me not to. He said, it's very, very troubling what I'm going through. And I don't want that to be, let them say what they want to say. That was hard. And that was really hard. Um, I remember a player once that was very injured and he took a ton of abuse for the injury, for how he was playing. But the team didn't want people to know how injured he was because they didn't want teams to game plan differently. And people were brutal to him. And the whole time he probably shouldn't have been playing, but was doing it for the team. Those are the times it's very difficult. Those are the times it's really hard. Now, there are times that I learn information. For me to report it would hurt the team. Now, I want to make it clear my job's not to protect the Raiders. But I also, as a beat writer, am embedded with the team. So I have some personal things, some personal lines I won't cross. I'll give you a few of them. I remember years ago, a player was super drunk. And I'm not saying this is a Raider story. I'm not saying it is or isn't. It was just over my journalistic career. Player was super drunk and called me and said, listen, I can't get a hold of anybody. I don't want to drive. Will you come give me a ride home? I gave him a ride home. And I got, I don't remember, 2 days, a week. It was within a week, but I had the player say to me, I'm surprised you didn't write about what happened. And I said, okay, tell me why. Tell me why. And they said, because you're a reporter, you guys love that. I said, do we really? I said, you could have killed somebody. And if I'd have found out you drove drunk, I would have written about it. But you got on the phone with the last person that you could call was a media guy. And you called me as a man. And as a man, and we had a very good relationship, I came and picked you up. Right. There's nothing to write. If I'd found out you drunk drove, I would have wrote. But because that is one of the most selfish, idiotic, stupid decisions any person can make. You want to go get drunk? Great. You want to drive and you put other people's lives in danger? I have zero respect for that. I said, you did everything right. I said, no. If you would have been exhausted and not played well, because this was a couple days before a game, maybe 36 hours, I don't know, close to about a day and a half. I said, I would have had an issue with that. But it didn't affect the team. You played well. They didn't lose. There's no story there. For me to report that, it's not a story. I'll give you another story. I remember one time covering a professional athletic team. A player had brought his girlfriend into an area and made his wife and a couple kids stay out of the area. And I'm walking out, and the wife just stopped to talk to me, which she had done multiple times. I mean, she knew I covered the team. She had read things or seen things that I had said about her husband and the team, oblivious to his girlfriend being there. And he came out and started to talk to her in a way that any man who would have listened to another man talk to a woman like that, I wouldn't have had any respect for you. Period. In my presence, you're not going to mistreat a woman. I don't care who you are. It's just not going to happen. And I looked at him, and when he and I started walking back, I got his attention. And I said, "You ever?" And I we'll go back in the middle of talking to her this way. I said to him, "I think you should stop now. Enough's enough." Unless, of course, you'd like me to write about it. And we're walking down the hallway, and he's getting on me. And I stopped and looked at him and said, I don't know who you think you are, but I'm not intimidated by you. And if you choose to participate in extracurricular activity against your beautiful wife and children, that's your decision. I said, but you treat her like that in front of me, and it now becomes something of which I'm going to get involved. And I won't give any more details, but I never wrote about it, never said anything about it. To me, that stuff is not related to sports. Now, if a player is out gallivanting around, I don't care if he's married or single, and messing around the night before games and coming in exhausted and it affects his performance, you have to write about that if you know it. But I wasn't going to do it. So what times do you say things? What times do you don't know? Let me give you a couple other ones. I had a story once before a very big football game that a player was severely injured in practice. This was a Tuesday, and probably was not going to play. So I called the coach privately, wasn't going to ask it at a press conference, and said, I have it from very good sources that this player's injured and not going to play. And the coach said to me, I'm not going to lie to you. It's 100% true. But is there a reason you have to report it today? Because then it allows the other team to game plan all week that he's not playing, and he wasn't injured in the last game. It was something that happened after the game. And to do that would hurt us. And he said, do you really need to do it? And I said, okay, then I'm going to report it before the injury. I remember this was a while ago, but before the injury reports were out. And he goes, okay. So I waited. Now, this was in college. So, you don't know until the day of the game. So the morning of the game, both teams are at the stadium, and I report so-and-so got injured on Tuesday. He's not playing in today's game. I didn't mind holding that. Didn't mind holding it one bit. Not at all. I still broke the story, but I didn't hurt the team. There have been times, including a couple since I've covered the Raiders, where I have known things several times, a lot of times, including some from OTAs and minicamp, or maybe some new things have been installed, or things maybe I know about a game plan. I would never share that. Never at all. It isn't about just being right. I tell this to young journalists all the time. A lot of people want to be first. They don't even care if they're accurate. Just want to be first. I'd rather be fifth and accurate where the first four are wrong. But the other thing is this. I'm going to be covering this team a long time. I'm not some young kid looking to jump to the next. I mean, I'm at the largest sports media company in the world. And by the way, that is factual. The jobs don't get better than what I have. A tremendous job. It allows me to provide for my family extremely well. At the largest sports media company in the world. And I have tremendous bosses. I work with great people. And I have the elite beat in the NFL. Okay. I'm not going anywhere. I'm committed. And because I'm committed, I'm not looking to make a jump. So you know what? I'd rather build a relationship. Now, let's go back again on a story that I had and missed. Years ago, a few years ago, the Raiders were about to give an extension to Derek Carr. I had the story, was written, ready to report. So I called the team for comment because you always want to get comment. And over that delay, they're like, yeah, no comment. Go ahead, run it. Now, I didn't need their permission to run it, but I'm saying go ahead and run it without their comment. And in that delay of waiting to ask, I got scooped on the story. Won't get into details right now, but when my career is over, I'm going to write a book about my career, and the whole story is going to be in there, a whole chapter on that story. But what happened is I remember one time I had a story about a person that was going to get a large raise. So I broke it. And afterwards, I called him and congratulated him. And the guy said to me, "You're a really good guy, Hondo, and I respect you. But can you ask me why you didn't call me?" And I said, well, I just wanted to get the story out. I knew it was factual. He goes, okay. He goes, "I really wish you would have called me." I said, okay, tell me why. He said, my wife didn't know. And our goal was that we were always going to do something very nice for her parents and my parents when the day I got a very big contract. And so I was going down to the bank this morning to pay off both of their homes. And then I was going to tell her, and we were going to announce it today. Had you called me, I just would have told her, and then you could have broke it. And you know that we're fond of you and your wife. We're close to you. And I would have rather me tell my wife than you. And that hit me. And so ever since then, anytime I have a story like that, I'll always call and say, hey, is there a reason you'd like a little bit of delay? Do you need to tell somebody? Whatever. I remember one time I had a story about a guy that was going to have to retire because of injury. Found out about it, called him, and he goes, man, I'm so glad you called me. I go, why? And he goes, my dad's on a hunting trip and he's out in the woods. He has no way to get a hold of him. And he goes, I need my dad to hear it from me. He goes, if you don't mind, I'm going to be driving to go see dad to the deer camp. I'm going to tell him about my retirement. I will call you as soon as I tell him, and you can break the story. So I waited. Again, there are times I've known things schematically. I keep that. I told you one time I had an offensive coordinator call me to complain about a defensive coordinator. A defensive coordinator called me to complain about an offensive coordinator. And I certainly wrote that the team was in turmoil, but I didn't get into specifics because what would it have gained? I was able to report there was turmoil. And then afterward, I wrote that there was great stress on the staff. But why would I get into who and what? Now, let me tell you why. I don't blame either coach for being super frustrated. Their head coach liked there to be a little bit of drama and like that he thought a little bit of edge was good. I think it's stupid. I think wise is a man that looks for a way to operate in peace. Now, it doesn't mean that you're afraid of stirring the pot, but he just did it on purpose. Mark Hollis, who was a 1 year won an award for the best athletic director in America, and Mark is a very, very good friend of mine, very good friend. I love him dearly. And Mark and I were talking about a person, and he said that person's never happy unless they're unhappy. Well, this coach was like that. And so I believe the offensive and defensive coordinator probably shouldn't called me, but I had a very good friendship with them. And so for me to have written that would probably have meant they would never going to get coordinator jobs again. Because no coach wants to hire somebody that'll call a media member and share it, that kind of stuff. All of those are different scenarios. And I think there are several things I look at. Number one, is this a pertinent story right now? Okay. When I wrote the story about the breakup of Derek Carr and the Raiders, that was a very important story to tell for a couple of reasons. Number one, I believe that the Raiders were getting unfairly judged for what happened to Derek. But I also believe there were some things being said about Derek that were unfair as well. This is the problem sometimes if you get into fandom. And I get mocked a lot because I say that I'm not a fan, but I'm generally not. Do I like the players? Yes. Do I like the organization? Of course I do. They're wonderful people. I work with them every day, and I don't know of one person currently employed by the Raiders I don't like. Is it good for me personally when the Raiders do well? Of course it is. Of course it is. But you get more clicks with negativity. That's a fact. That's why you'll see a lot of media, they just go negative on everything because it's more clicks. But when the Raiders play, so for example, Kirk Cousins, love Kirk, know his family, known him a long, know him since he was in school. And I don't mean college, I mean high school. Excuse me. Um, Wonderful man, just wonderful guy. Love Derek. If the Raiders were playing Atlanta tomorrow, I would want all of the people who I consider my friends and good people to do well. I want them to do well. I always root for good people. But I don't lose sleep with losses. I don't get excited with wins. Now, I respect the game of football. So there were times after Josh McDaniels played his 20th game that after 20th, after Josh McDaniels played a significant enough games that it was worthy of being judged, then I then stepped in and said, this is ridiculous. And I was more critical. I didn't turn on Josh. He had enough to assess his team and make adjustments. And after 20 games, that's what I do. So do I want AP to do really well? I do. He's my friend. And I want him to do well because he's really good people. Do I want Max Crosby to crush it? Yes. He's a friend, and I want him to do wonderfully well. Do I want Kirk Cousins to do good? Of course I do. Again, I root for good people. Christian Wilkins, good people. Robert Spillane, good. I've known Robert since back in college. So when you are a person who can be analytical, my job is to not to sit here and to worry about, are the Raiders going to like what I write? I learned a long time ago with professional athletes and professional athletes, if you tell the truth and don't make it personal, they may disagree with you, but they never get mad. Big story. I'm laying in bed one night, phone rings 3 o'clock in the morning, and a coach begins to just tear me to pieces. Get all done. I said, Coach, because they didn't like what I wrote after the game. I'm not going to tell you what team it was. I said, Coach, did I say anything in there that was untruthful? No. Was it, did I say anything in there that was false? No. Well, I just don't like what you wrote it. Blankety blank, blank, blank. I said, okay, then don't perform like that. Brash. So the next day, I'm there at the facility and they walk by and make a joke. And I make a joke. And we went on. So I again, I'm never going to hurt the team I'm covering. I'll quickly tell you this. There was a person one time that I vehemently did not like. I didn't dislike them. I vehemently disliked them. And I had information on them and kept my mouth shut. Wasn't football. Wasn't important. Wasn't important. In fact, that person came to me later, a few years later, and said, I know that you never really cared for me. And I also know that you knew something and you never buried me. And I want you to know that I appreciate it. And I said, I appreciate your kind words, and let it go on. So there's so many different things. I hate it when I watch people get criticized for things. For example, Derek's last year, his back was bad, almost bad the entire year. Quite frankly, there were people in the building that felt like he should not play. But whether you liked Derek or hated Derek, he was going to play. He was going to play. And so, did Derek have a good year his last year in Vegas? We all know the answer to that. But is it fair to reference that he had been injured? Absolutely. And it's just the way it goes. So there are times you see people get criticized, whether you like them or not. It's not fair. So again, I look at it, is this something they're going to be out the whole year? And I know they're going to be out the whole year. Then I will write. I don't expect them to return. And maybe the team wants him to stay encouraged. So he'll keep working hard. Or maybe the team wants other people to wonder, is he coming back this week or not? Whatever. But that's the way. That's a great question, Alessandro, that I took a really long time to answer. But, I thought it was a really good question. I wanted to address it. Next one from David Bigelow. Thank you, Hondo, for all the work you put in giving us your honest assessment and opinion on the Raiders. My question is regarding clickbait. I've been a fan since the 70s, and it seems as if there's a free agent or trade rumor the Raiders' name seems to always been included in. Do you think it's just agents putting the information out there, or writers trying to get more clickbait per se? David Bigelow. That's a great question. So let me address this a couple ways. I knew that the Raiders were possibly interested in trading for a player this year. Okay. I knew it was an interest. I also knew there was nothing imminent, but I knew it was a potential. So I said to Raider Nation, there is a potential of a player to be picked. Now, when I reached out to someone within the organization, I was asked to probably not mention the position. The reason being is it would have been clearly evident what player they were probably going to replace. And because the player didn't know it, they felt if it became public, it would hurt us with the player. Because if we didn't make the trade, what position are they going to be in? Okay. So that made sense to me. Why hurt the player? And any player, I think, would be hurt to find out they were potentially going to be cut or traded. And nothing was imminent. And I thought the argument was germane. And so I just reported that. But I made it very clear nothing's imminent, nothing's close. It was just briefly looked at. Okay. So I took a ton of grief on, oh, where's this deal that you're you keep clickbaiting Raider Nation on. And you can go back and look from the beginning of the season when I first reported. Every time, nothing imminent. I'm not even saying it's going to happen. But I had found out it from somebody connected to the team of the player that was the potential trade on. I just left it. So that wasn't clickbait. That was making Raiders aware. I remember the first night of free agency before they got Davante Adams, and there was utter panic. And I kept telling people, relax. The Raiders have a plan. I had already reported about the wanting of Davante Adams, and I thought it was going to happen. That deal almost didn't happen for Davante, but it was able to get it done, and it happened the next day. So, but clickbait, I'll give you an example of clickbait. There was a media member who trashed the Raiders every year, but then the Raiders made changes, and then they trashed the Raiders for making the changes, like they didn't preach against the Raiders for the previous several years. Clickbait. And clickbait is when you say things that are inaccurate only for the express reason of getting people to click. That's fundamentally wrong. And people may not always like what I say, but at least I will 100% stand behind what I say if I say something to you. So, for example, when Jackson Powers, JPJ, got selected in the draft, and he was working at left guard in rookie minicamp. I was originally told he's going to get looked at, he's going to play there, but he's a guy on the right. Okay. But he did so well, and the new staff was so impressed with Dylan Parham. It was, hey, let's give JPJ the advantage of having Andre James and Colton Miller to be sandwiched between for their wisdom. And then we know we can put Dylan, who's going to help Thayer, and it just makes the line better. So when that changed and I got a call, yeah, we're going to do that, I came right on and said, this is what I said. I admit that I said it, but then told you why it changed. Wasn't clickbait in the least bit. Not in the least bit. And so, again, I want to go back because, David, I want to read this again. It says, if there's a free agent or a trade, the Raiders, may, seem to always be included. Do you think it's just agents putting out there or writers trying to get information? So this is a great question. Let me get into this more. I have had agents call me and say, oh, man, Raiders are hot on my guy. Okay. And then I'll talk to somebody in the organization. Hey, what do you think of this guy? No. Yeah. Now, I am very careful when it comes to sources. If I have news sources, my answer to them is, if you come back that you told me an untruth, I will expose you as my source. But if it comes back and it's truthful, No one will ever know. That's my rule. I have great sources around the league who have never been wrong, ever. And when they tell me something, gold. I have some new sources that when they tell me something, okay, I'm going to go check it out and see if I can get somebody else. Sometimes I'll tell you, yeah, I'm hearing this from one person, not getting any other collaboration, but it's somebody who would know. So, but there is constant clickbait. Okay, every year I've been here, I think the Raiders, except for one, so 75% of the time have won the over on season win predictions. The over. Come on, man. The over. They've gone over because the Raiders are such a humongous fan base, and you all should be proud of this. And they're so consumed by their team. I'm going to give you all some credit now. Being a Raider is not like being a fan. It is a lifestyle. Y'all get it. I was doing a national radio interview last night, and I said to the person that was interviewing me, the Raiders are as passionate as any college fan base. Y'all are phenomenal. That's just a fact. And so there's so many, and it's consuming from around the world that, ooh, if we can put the Raiders in there. All right, look at all the people, every single person who reported, oh, the Raiders are hot after, moving up. They're trying vehemently to move up in the draft. Totally not accurate. Is there some who maybe were told that? Yep. And I hope that they learn their lesson. I tell agents, when I talk to agents, you lie to me. I was just on the phone literally within the last 48 hours with one of the top agents in all the National Football League. And they said to me, I had a relatively new agent say to me, you gave them their speech. You lied to me one time. And he goes, I told him, because I told this agent, call this particular agent, very well-respected agent. Ask them if I've ever done them wrong. And I said, but you ever lie to me and I'm never going to help you again. And this agent called, and I was in the car with my wife, and he just said, hey, I wanted to tell you, XYZ agent called me, and I told him, you can trust Hondo, but you better not ever give them bad information. Now, sometimes I'll get agents saying, hey, this is just in the plenary stages, or they've just initially contacted us. Now, I've also had agents call me because they know how I am, saying, hey, my client would really like to be a Raider, or my client would really like to do this. Okay. Classic example. There were several players. I'm trying to count in my head, but I don't want to miss somebody. Several players who wanted to join the Raiders last year because of AP. So I reported there are multiple players, and very good ones, that wanted to join the Raiders. I knew that because agents told me that. In fact, one of the agents at the Super Bowl said to me, you got time for a bite to eat? I said, sure. So I go have a bite to eat with him. And he's like, man, I got to tell you, my guy would love to be a Raider. We love AP. He goes, I would love my guys to go play for AP. Okay, good to know. So I'm reporting multiple very good players want to be Raiders and play with Antonio Pierce. Totally accurate. Okay. Some of the guys the Raiders were not interested in. Some of them, the numbers were not going to be workable for the Raiders in the way that they are approaching the salary cap with both frugality, but not being cheap. And it didn't work. So I had people, oh, okay, you just made it up. Nobody wanted to play for AP. Well, clearly Christian Wilkins did. best defensive tackle in the business. Alexander Madison had several places to go. So did Andre James. He wanted to come back. Adam Butler and Jake wanted to come back. They were able to get things done. But yeah, there were several others that wanted to come, but the Raiders were being extremely careful who they brought in, what they let in, and how the numbers were. They were not going to overpay for anybody. And there are a couple of those guys that wanted to come that the Raiders felt like they had some young studs that deserved a little bit of time to develop, to see what they had. So that's how it all works. Do I think there is a lot that comes? Yep. When you get guys who don't care where their clicks come and an agent tells them something, they'll put it out there. Sometimes guys just try to put two and two together. Okay. So I saw a report this year. Raiders wanted to trade for Dak Prescott. I didn't see the report that people emailed me about, or the Raiders should. The dumbest thing I've ever read in email, and I'm not calling the fans dumb. Okay. Could Dak Prescott at one point maybe be a Raider? Sure. Was it going to happen this season? No. I got an email the other day, someone asking, what about trading midseason if Aiden doesn't work out? No. No. Could he? Sure. This year? No. That's just clickbait. Just clickbait. You may remember I had somebody ask me, what about, your friends of Kirk Cousins? What about Kirk Cousins? I think Kirk Cousins would have performed very well for the Raiders. I think Kirk Cousins, and he is my friend, and I would have loved to have him here, if for nothing other than just to get to see my friend more often. But I do not think he would have been a good fit with this Raider organization. I'll get into that more in a little bit. So again, that's where I think a lot of it is clickbait, a ton of it. I know a guy who worked for an organization once that said to me, oh, yeah, we used to love writing bad things about the Raiders, man. Their fans love to be miserable. That's what he said. I don't believe that. I think there is a big segment of this fan base that wants to be miserable. I mean, I've been here 5 years. It's hate Derek, hate Derek, hate Derek. Oh, Derek's gone. Hate Jimmy, hate Jimmy, hate Jimmy, hate Aiden, hate Aiden, hate Aiden. I get it. Understand it. I think there are some that just want to be miserable, some that just want to be right and have a big take. If you have 100 big takes and one comes true, it doesn't mean you're good at what you do. A clock without a battery is right twice a day. So some of it's just clickbait. I hope that gives you kind of an explanation. But I would stick with and follow people who have a proven track record of integrity. No reporter always gets it right. Ever. Okay. Let's go back to a story that I got plastered on. I was asked, what are the odds that the Raiders fire Josh McDaniels this season? And I said, well, you never say no in the NFL, but close to 0%. I don't remember the number I used, 5%, I think. 10%. I don't know. I think it was I don't even think I used as high as 10. I think I said 5. Because you never say no in the NFL. The reason you don't say never in the NFL was because look what happened. But the thing is after the New England game, when they won and beat New England, and other people, Dan Orsini from The Athletic reported this as well, they were told they were coming back. Okay? I don't believe Mark Davis lied. I think Mark Davis realized how bad it was, and you know what? I can't let it go another year. So every reporter has times, and that's why I'm not ashamed when I'm not God. So when I get it wrong, I'll tell you. What about the year I predicted the Raiders to go 12-5? Horrible prediction. Horrible. I own it. So 3 of the 4 years I've been here, I either was within one game or nailed it on the nose. I think that's very good predictions. Every time significantly against Vegas. And only one of the years did I miss it. I'm not God. So I would watch for people who do it with character, who do it with integrity, who give you good information that's consistently right, and avoid those that aren't. Just avoid those people that just make stuff up. Oh, Raiders making a hard push to move up for whomever in the draft. Okay. Another prediction I got wrong is I had discussed a that you'd maybe see the Raiders take a quarterback on day 2. Okay. Uh, and some things happen, and that did not occur. Some circumstances that they did not expect. And so, but I came out and said, going into excuse me, I had said I thought the Raiders after round 1 were going to, so that they would probably take a quarterback in the 3rd day, not the 2nd, the 3rd. Well, some things happened. So the morning of the 3rd day, I said, I know that I told you yesterday, I thought today that on the 3rd day they would take a quarterback. I've been told now it's not going to happen. They'll go with a UDFA. So 3rd round gets done. People heard the one report, didn't hear the second, the second one saying before. So that happens because the game evolves, because things happen. There are people involved in lots of moving pieces. So again, I would watch for people that do it with integrity. Then when they're wrong, they come right out. Yeah, I was wrong. Oh, and this is why. Here's what happened. Every time I'm wrong, I'm constantly evaluating, is there something I could have done differently? And you go with it. Now, I remember last year, Jimmy Garoppolo was injured, and they were planning on starting Brian Hoyer in LA against the Bulls. That was the plan. I know that 100% factually. And there was a lot of angry people. Why isn't Aiden O'Connell playing this and thus and thus and this? And at the last minute, you may remember, I landed in LA the night before and tweeted out, it's probably going to be Aiden. I didn't guess during the week. I'm not going to tell you how I knew, just going to leave it there, but I wasn't guessing. And the same paper person that told me Brian was going to start then told me that there had been a reversal. They were going to go with Aiden. And they played Aiden. They didn't change the offense. They didn't adjust to what he could do because Jimmy Garoppolo had gotten so much of the reps. And I personally believe that it was, hey, we're going to show you Aiden's not ready. Even if we lose a game, we want to play Brian. Okay. Now, Brian Hoyer, great friend of mine. Great friend. I believe the Raiders should have done what AP did, adjust the offense, and gone with Aiden O'Connell. I made that point clear. And Aiden goes down there and had a terrible game, still basically outplayed Herbert, but had a very, very bad game. Horrible game. I think there was a small, very small, super small contingent that thought, okay, let's shut up the fans and do what we want. And it backfired. So again, I was wrong there. Very good source. I was wrong. But you want to follow people that do things that way. I hope that helps. Okay, let's get to the next one. Hondo, thank you, Hondo, for all the work you put into giving us your honest assessment and opinions of the Raiders. My question is regarding, I just read that one. Hondo, Aiden O'Connell is in college, he ran a 4.740, which is not bad for a quarterback. Do you think we will see more mobility out of Aiden this year for the first time in 20 years. I am really excited about the Raiders. This is from Danny Spitzer. Yeah. And again, I want to make this clear. And please, somebody keep the date of this podcast because I want to make it clear. The Raiders have not seen enough of Aidan O'Connell to rule him out as QB1. You may have a hot take. Great. And it's one of 100 you get right. Doesn't make you an expert. But they haven't seen enough to say no. So, hey, let's build the franchise. Let's get it stronger. If he doesn't come through and Gardner doesn't, we'll be in a position to go get a quarterback next year. And we've got a great football team. And we're not rebuilding. Okay. Do I think he could be a good? Sure. Have I seen enough to anoint him as one? No. Am I a fan of Aidan? I really like Aidan the kid, but I love Gardner too. Do I want Aidan to do well? Yeah, I root for good people. But I'm not claiming he's anything other than what he is. He's a potential quarterback that this franchise is interested in trying to develop. And let me just say something here. If they're able to develop him on a 4th-round salary with 2 more years left, so that means 2 more years of the salary cap growing. So when they have to give him a deal, if he turns out to be the real deal, it's not going to be as crushing on the salary cap. Dear God, did you see the money? It's basically like 55 million a year or something that Trevor Lawrence just got. That is asinine money with this salary cap. Asinine money. And I like Trevor. I don't think Trevor's worth that. He hasn't even won a playoff game yet. I mean, he's been injured a lot. I like Trevor Lawrence. I think he's going to be a really, really good quarterback, but there is no way at this point in his career he's worth that. Come on. And then you put such a vast amount of money, your salary cap, into one player? Well, who's he going to throw to, himself? No. If you're the Raiders, you get better. You add great talent. You increase the team. You think you got a chance with Aidan? All right. Roll the dice, because if they hit on him, it's huge. And if they don't, cost them nothing. This is a win-win scenario with Aidan. It's a 1-year win-win scenario. Great decision. Whether he turns out to be great or not, I will not change. They made the right decision. Next, Hondo. In last week, I've heard you speak eloquently and accurately about the value of going through struggles in your life, recovering from bad choices. It got me thinking, do you think that there is a chance, and if so, how good a chance, that Henry Ruggs could return to the Raiders after paying his debt to society? Thank you as always, Jason Beaver, Portland, Oregon. Do I think he returned to the Raiders? Sure. Do I think he will? And after he's paid his debt to society, I have no problem with him. I want him to go. This is one thing about our society I don't get. Criminals go to jail, pay their price, and get out. And people want to treat them like they're filth. Man, I believe in redemption. I believe in second and third chances. I say this all the time. One of the reasons I'm so grateful for the Lord is not because I think anybody that doesn't embrace him is bad. It's because I know I'm not. I know that I'm not. I know my heart. And I don't ever want to live in a place where somebody can go pay a price and not get a chance to redeem themselves. But I also know sometimes you got to probably go get that opportunity somewhere else. So There you go. Next comes to us. I am an everyday listener to YouTube. I want to say that your positivity about this team and life has inspired me greatly. I'm 34 from Vermont. My name is RJ. My RJ. My question is an injury update on Kolton Miller and JPJ. And this is from Randy H. Colt Miller, I think everybody expects him there by training camp. JPJ is doing fine. So I think there's no one that I've talked to is concerned about Kolton not being in training camp. I think they're being extremely precautionary because it wasn't necessary. Remember, installation, not evaluation. And JPJ is doing fine. Last one says, forget for a moment last year's no OTAs, no mini camps, changing and coaching, etc. Do you think that making Aiden QB1 for 4 to 6 games makes sense? He remains unknown in QB capabilities. His work ethic and team character is solid, and you have a known backup in Gardner. For the games that you think might be challenging or a loss, such as Baltimore in 2, cut him loose with the playbook and see what he can do. I would appreciate your thoughts on how the Raiders manage Aiden this year. Regards, Chris S. Well, Chris, I'm going to tell you how I would address this. Okay. I think that AP deserves to run the team the way he wants and not the way I opinion or opine or you. If he wins the job from Anthony Brown and from Gardner Minshew, and he's number 1, then I think you put him in there until you think he's performing at a level that you want to give somebody else a shot. I don't think you can go in with a predisposed this. He gets 8 games. Okay. I remember years ago, Bobby Bowden, the coach at Florida State, and I were talking about his usage of quarterbacks, and occasionally from time to time he would use quarterbacks a little bit different. But he talked about, I never made guys any promises. Because what if you told a guy, okay, you're going to play the second half? Well, what if the guy in the first half's playing really well? What if the guy in the first half had 2 interceptions, but neither one of them were his fault because the ball was supposed to go to an area and the wide receiver didn't get there? I just think you have to be careful making promises. I think you need to be extremely careful. But can they have a plan in their head? Yes. But what I would say to you respectfully is that it doesn't matter what I think or what you think. I think the way they handle it is let there be a full competition with Anthony Brown, Gardner Minshew, and Aiden O'Connell. Let it get handled. Let's see what happens. And when you get that guy, you ride him till he's earned the right to have some bad plays. Years ago, I heard a college coach say something I thought was really interesting. He said that someone asked, I think it was Steve Spurrier, how long are you going to play this freshman? Till he screws up. Then I'll probably give another guy a chance. That's just Steve. He's just a funny guy like that. And eventually his freshman screwed up and he didn't take him out. Somebody asked why, and he goes, because he had earned the right to have some screw ups. We all do. But you got to play good enough, long enough that you earn the right to screw up. I hope that makes sense to you. I just want to take a minute. I appreciate y'all, Ray. Appreciate y'all very much. Father's Day is tomorrow. If you don't have a dad because you didn't have one, maybe he passed away, or maybe he didn't want to be part of your life, or whatever reason, it can be a hard day. Maybe you're like me. My dad's been gone 10 years. And the only thing that makes it hard for me is I'm selfish. Because I can tell you right now, if my dad was asked, do you want to go home, back to home to your wife and kids? He would say no. He's with the Lord. And I can tell you, he just wouldn't want to come back. Nor would my brother, who died earlier this year. But Father's Day is an amazing day. And if you had a bad dad, don't let this be a bad day for you. You purpose in your heart. My father lost his dad when he was very young, and my grandfather's name was Ernest. And he lost his dad when he was young. He's a great dad. And my dad purposed in his heart, I'm going to be everything to my kids, like my dad was to me, and I'm going to live longer than my dad because I want to be there. Father's Day, it wasn't a time of him to be upset or angry or mad because his dad was passed. He celebrated it with his kids. And when he's going to be gone, so this Sunday when I celebrate it, I'm going to celebrate the memories that I have with him. And I'm going to celebrate it because of all the good things. So if your dad's gone, don't you be depressed. Be grateful you had a good dad. If you didn't have one or didn't have a good one, then I want you to purpose in your heart that a young person is going to grow up and they're not going to see you the way you had to see your dad. You're going to change and break that curse over your family. And if you have a great dad and he's alive, please celebrate him. Celebrate him. And if you have a dad and maybe you're estranged from him, I understand sometimes there are situations like abuse, but you're estranged from him. I'm going to give you a word of wisdom that I learned a few months ago. And it was a person said, I wish I had realized when I was growing up that my parents were growing up too. Maybe you had a dad that made a lot of mistakes. Now, again, you all know what I mean. I've addressed abuse, that kind of stuff. Maybe they just made a lot of dumb mistakes. Okay. And show grace. You didn't come with an owner's manual. And when you are going to become a parent, you want to know what you're going to learn? You're going to screw up. I love being a dad. And I look back at times I screwed up. It's what dads do. But I was always there. Be there. Be there. And if you have kids that aren't appreciative to you, then just celebrate that you got to be a dad. It's a great day. No reason to be depressed. Tomorrow's going to be a great day for all of us. I want you to celebrate your dad. I'm going to celebrate mine. And I'm going to reflect on mistakes I've made as a dad and think about how I can be a better one over the next year. But it's a good day. Don't you let this be a bad day. If you're looking for a gift for your dad, John Eldredge's book, Wild at Heart. Get the book. If you don't have a dad, get it. If you had a bad dad, get it. If you had a good dad, get it. If you are a dad, get it. If you can put steam on a mirror, get it. I don't get any royalties from it. It is a phenomenal book by an incredible man, John Eldredge. Remember, Wild at Heart. God bless y'all. I want to wish you a happy Father's Day. I'll see you tomorrow. We'll have a good time together. God bless you.